What is going on, SHIPIT Nation YouTube station? Tuesday, we got 11 games in the MLB streets. I got my guy, Gyiraszin, man of the people out there, fan favorite in the YouTube comments. Our first show together this season. Gyiraszin, I'll bring you in, man. Happy Tuesday. We got a fun slate on tap. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. We're getting here week one here. Baseball, I love it. Saw that you got to enjoy your home team there, the Brew Crew's opening day. So, that's always a lot of fun. Here in Detroit, which is going to be this Friday. So I know my man Hoop and I will be down there enjoying our day. It's supposed to be like upper 50s, maybe low 60s, sunny. So, it'll be a nice day. So there'll be a lot of high noons being drank, a lot of safety meetings. We having a lot of fun. It's quite the sight. It's like a big ass 2 mile square party around Comerica Park. A lot of fun, but looking forward to that. But hey, we've been smashing already. I know you've already had a couple big pull downs over there in the FanDuel streets. I can't complain. I haven't had a top shipper yet, but man, my account's looking a little bit juicier than it was at the beginning of the season. It's so good to have baseball back. Man, I'm loving it. We got all kinds of like little drama in this season so far, Nades. It's been kind of cool. We got, this torpedo bat shit that everybody's talking about, and you and I were kind of talking pre-show. There was a few lists of that, and then you were sitting there telling me, which we got a pretty good kick out of, what DraftKings now has got like the torpedo bat section if you want to make some bets on that. So that's kind of funny. About time they got smart with some of their marketing, as I was saying. But man, good thing they have baseball back. NBA sucks. I just never really enjoyed. I can't do it. LeBron got me to stop watching it, but I just can't stand NBA. Hockey, my team sucks. So NCAA tournament, that's a lot of fun. But hey, we got four number one seeds, so that's first time in a while. But man, so glad to have baseball back. So good to see all these people's names here in the chat. Po G-Gen Stoner, seen it. Mark Davis. We got Rio Hebrew Cheetah in the house with us. Takedown 78. Man, a lot of fun here to be had today. But hey, we're going to dial us up some winners here as we go through the slate. We got big 11 games. Well, we got a little bit of weather here we got to worry about that we just got to keep our eye on with the Twins White Sox. But man, other than that, just looking to have a lot of fun, dial up some winners, and see how many SHIPIT logos we can get up there at the top of them tournaments here today there, my friend.
Yeah, that's the goal, man. You said it best. Yeah, NBA sucks unless you're a member over at ShipItNation.com, and you got our guy Hebrew Cheetah Rio. Run as fast as you can, right? Try and catch the cheetah. He's usually at the top of the leaderboards there. He's still grinding the NBA street. Shout out to him. I mean, what a grind NBA content is. I couldn't imagine doing that. I'm on double duty right now with MLB and NHL. Yeah, your Red Wings do suck over there. They won me a little bit of money throughout the season this year, but yeah, they're nothing special. But I'll tell you what has been a printer over here is MLB to start the year. We've been crushing it. I've been fortunate enough to be having pretty damn good start to the season here. Couple shippers so far. I know a lot of members last night followed suit and jumped on with the Cubbies, who came in significantly under-owned from what I thought they were going to be last night, man. And if you didn't have the Cubs, you were pretty much shut the laptop and move on with your night, go to bed, right? I know it was the late game there, but, man, that ballpark out there in Oakland is not the typical ballpark that where we're used to seeing out there in Oakland, man. The ball was flying out of the park there. Carson Kelly hitting for home runs, for cycles out there, and everybody tilting their face off about Carson Kelly's not known for his offense. He kind of shoved it up everyone's rear end last night, so that was fun to see. I had him, had everyone else there. So looking forward to it. We got a fun slate on here, and yeah, you mentioned, right, the torpedo talk. That's the talk of the town, right? Baseball, and finally, DraftKings is playing into the public, right, and throwing a torpedo section. You can click torpedo section, and you can bet any player prop you want of all the torpedo bat users. It's not just the Yankees. As you know, Ellie De La Cruz, another fellow torpedo bat user, hit 2 bombs yesterday. He wasn't on any main slate there. Cubs got a couple guys on there, Blue Jays, Reds, Pirates, the Rays, who we're going to talk about here tonight. The Rays definitely look pretty good.
Kiki does too. Kiki, do you love me? He uses them too, Nades. I love me some Kiki when I'm playing. I always got to sing that song, man. Somebody brought it up in chat today too. I was kind of giggling, but man,
every time you bring Kiki's name up, who did hit a bomb for the old Dodgers, which hey, are another talking point here. The late night hammer game there. But yeah, let's jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the screen. I'm going to do a little Saber Sim kind of screen share here real quick. Let me add this, swap it over here and do the little screen share for the Saber Sim. I did a dry run here. I got my main teams and stuff loaded in here, but I did do the dry run just to kind of get a scope of the slate here. Gyiraszin in terms of stacks. When I click over to here, the team stacks, you see the Twins up here. That is the one weather game really that has a concern. There is a little bit of a weather concern out there in Oakland, but Roth over on RotoGrinders does have both those games tagged as kind of yellow. I think they should be fine outside of that. Really, weather isn't concerned here. You got the Twins kind of popping a lot, the Giants, the Nats, Tampa. It's pretty spread out, as you can tell here, but where it's not spread out is when we click into pitchers and we look here, and this is going to be a talking point of the slate, obviously. Logan Gilbert, the poster child on our show right here on the graphic coming into the screen. Logan Gilbert, clear-cut chalk of the slate, getting slammed into builds. Then you got Chris Sale, Steele, Jose Barrios there, which is kind of interesting. You got Corbin Burns there in Crackerjack Park out there in Yankee Stadium against torpedo bat users, and Michael King. So kind of an interesting way on what optimizer teams and projections are kind of pushing. What's your kind of overall take on that before we jump over and kind of break it down in terms of our pitcher takes tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm narrowing pitching down. I mean, I think there's quite the significant drop-off after Gilbert. I mean, Gilbert's pretty obvious. You know, guy was, 6th in Cy Young voting last year. I mean, obvious stud. Had a pretty good start his first time out. I mean, the K-prop on him, Nades, is like 8.5 too. So, you know, it's like way above everybody else. But, you know, really, you look at the strikeout prop numbers. The only other guy that even really keep up on the price is Chris Sale. But, I mean, you look across what he's got, you know, facing him down here. We got pretty tough matchup for him, obviously, with the Dodgers. But, you know, I think Sale's the pivot. Logan Gilbert, for me, is the man. You know, you look at Steele, I think he's in play a little bit. Michael King, if you want to go there, I think he's the pivot off of Steele. So I think there's a few options, but man, I'm just going to kind of narrow it down. There's just, you know, some low end guys that really, I think are really risky dart throws that, you know, could pay off. Yeah, for me, Logan Gilbert is pretty easy. I think, you know, we shouldn't try to overthink ourselves too much on a slate like today. Cause you know, you just look across about those bats. There isn't really any bats that are going to stand out like a clear cut kind of chalk. So I just feel like you can just use the pitchers you feel like it is best. I think Gilbert is a good play, especially on both sides. But, you know, Steele, like I said, could be another argument. But, man, I just think you jam Gilbert either way, both sides. Maybe mix up a little SP2s over there on DK. But over there on FanDuel, I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think it's Gilbert close to a lock for me, especially in single entry 3-max stuff and cash. He's definitely the guy you play no matter what. You just don't get cute. Tonight, I'm taking the approach of more of a condensed pitcher pool. I got maybe 5 guys that I kind of like. One guy in particular, obviously, in Logan Gilbert, that pretty much everyone's going to agree on. And then it's kind of just who rounds out your SP2. If you need a cheap guy in a guy like Simeon Woods Richardson, who I definitely have interest in, I think he makes some sense. But let's go more in depth here, and we'll break it into 8K and above, and then we'll go 7K and below. 8K and above, obviously hit on your take on Gilbert. You already hit on it a little bit. But then Justin Steele is getting a little bit of ownership. Chris Sale, I think this ownership's a little high that we have him at. I think he gets definitely squeezed a little bit there at 8,800. I think people are just going to find that $200 and get up to Gilbert. I do think Sale is a good pivot there. It is the Dodgers, right, that everyone kind of struggles against. But Chris Sale does have a ton of upside, and people are going to have a little sour taste in their mouth, right, to Chris Sale's opening start on opening day there, where he kind of got knocked around, kind of got beat up a little bit. Michael King, another guy with some upside there. He's facing that Indians team, which typically we don't like to pick on too much last season, but I've actually picked on Cleveland, the Indians, quite a bit this season. Michael King's got some upside there. Don't mind him. And then you got Corbin Burns in Yankee Stadium out there. He's kind of regressed the last 2 seasons, right? His numbers have kind of started coming down. He's more of a average strikeout pitcher. They dropped off a lot last year, and he kind of just relies on his ground ball abilities and kind of game management, which doesn't really bode too well, right, for DraftKings scoring and fantasy scoring, even on FanDuel over there. What's your take 8K and above in those guys in particular? And then you got Logan Webb against that Astros team who can't hit their way out of wet paper bag so far to start the year here. Really coming in at virtually no ownership at all with, his strikeout upside that he can display for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, 8K and above. There's, we can start with Baez. I'm not really too interested in attacking that. I need to see more of that. He was a kind of below average strikeout pitcher anyway. I need to see more of him after coming back from injury. Steele, as we mentioned, is the guy I think it's interesting. He, it's his third start. He went, 60? I look 67, 77. He went up 10. So, I mean, we should be getting north of 85 pitches for him today. I do, I don't mind going after the A's here, especially with the lefty. So don't mind him 8,200. I think his price is right. Severino, what are we fishing for? His 1-2 good games a year. Other than that, I mean, that guy's he's too frustrating for me. Berrios, no thanks against Washington here. I mean, he got beat up last time. Webb, I mean, he's more of a ground ball guy. I don't know. I'm not really interested in attacking, especially a Houston team that just doesn't strike out too much. Burns, I mean, he's older. He gets here. I mean, he gets a matchup here against the Yankees. I'm kind of glad it's Corbin Burns type kind of pitcher. If not, man, the Yankees would be mega chalky today. So, I mean, is Corbin Burns enough to kind of scare people away today? I guess that's kind of one of the questions of the slate that we can discuss as we go on. But I think for me, I'm going to stay away from Burns. I mean, I could see, he has some strikeout upside. He showed it in the past. I mean, there are some Ks in that Yankee lineup. So, I mean, I couldn't fault you for it. I do think it's a little risky. King is interesting. The only problem is we talked a little bit yesterday, and the Indians are just a really tough team on both sides of the pitching side and the hitting side to attack. I mean, the hitting side, I'm just not enamored with the bottom part of that line. I don't think they have enough power up and down for me to really want to stack the Indians too much. You're just going to have to show me more going on. I mean, of course, we can always use guys like, Jose Ramirez. I mean, that's pretty easy. But King, I mean, I'm afraid of that Indian team. They don't strike out enough for us. So kind of want to stay away from that. Sale, I think, is interesting. I mean, he's Chris Sale. He didn't look too bad last start. As you mentioned, you get beat up a little bit, but I mean, he still looked like Chris Sale. You watch him. I mean, when you watch him, you're like, ooh, man, this guy's going to be kind of tough to hit. But I mean, he's obviously a lefty. I mean, we got Shohei. I mean, Muncy, I mean, he's, lefty there. So I do kind of like that matchup. Mookie's, obviously somebody you could always play. I do like Mookie in that matchup, actually. But, man, Gilbert's just so far ahead of everybody with the Tigers. I mean, other than Carpenter and Riley Green, I mean, I think that's all that, Gilbert really needs to work around here. So, I think Gilbert's got a great chance, especially on FanDuel, to get that quality start, which we're hunting for. So really like that. But, man, I just think today, like you said, I think pitching is pretty thin today. I mean, you can, go Gilbert, Sale. If you want to get a little crazy, you could go King. But like I said, I just don't think there's too much upside there. I think Steele at the price is probably one of the top price per dollar plays. I think that's kind of why maybe it'll level out with the ownership. It's just the price difference there. What is it? 23, 800. I think was Gilbert's like 10.5 over on FanDuel or something. So, I just don't like some of the other options here. There really isn't hard. You look at the strikeout percentages, 22% is pretty much the MLB average. And you look here today, I think we got like 5 guys north of that here today of all the pitchers today. So, and the 2 guys are up on top, Gilbert and Sale. I think they're above the 27. And then you got a couple guys above the 23, maybe 3 or 4 for last I remember looking. So, I mean, it's kind of thin today, really, what you're looking at. I mean, it's just, didn't even want to pick on shitty teams after that if you're not going to really get some strikeouts. But, man, we're playing DFS. You got to chase some strikeouts. And I'm not going to lose that at pitcher today. So I'm just going to keep my pool tight here, Nades.
Yeah, up at the top, I'm with you. Gilbert, clear cut, far and away the best option. I won't fault anyone for just clicking the lock button on him the way we have the pitcher slate today. You can make the case, right, early in the year, mega chalk pitchers, right? They're still getting stretched out, kind of still getting acclimated, but I don't see any issue to be worried about Gilbert here tonight. I'm with you there. Justin Steele is my SP2. He's my second favorite guy tonight. I want to pair those guys as much as possible. I don't care about their ownership, right? You can get different the bats. People just kind of cut it off after the 5-hole hitters, right? 6, 7, 8, 9 in every lineup, regardless of the team, are always under-owned for what their upside displays. So yeah, that's one way to easily get different there. So I'm not worried about ownership from a pitcher standpoint tonight with those two guys. I love those two guys a lot. I have more interest in Logan Webb than it seems like you do. I just think he flies significantly under the radar. This Houston team's looked terrible this year. I get it, right? They traded Kyle Tucker away, right? He's on the Cubs. We're going to talk about him when we get to the bats aspect. And pitchers have been kind of printing this year so far to start the season in the limited sample, right? The couple games that we have. I think Logan Webb is interesting at his sub. I expect him to be sub 10% for sure, maybe even sub 5%. And on a slate where you mentioned, right, we have like two guys over league average in terms of that 22% strikeout rate. It's tough. So I don't mind a guy like Logan Webb who does rely more on ground balls. He sits right around that league average in terms of strikeout rates. If he can go through and get me 6, 7 innings, right, maybe pick up 4 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, and just limit hard contact, right, limit runs. I think that's enough on a slate like this where I just don't think too many guys can kind of outmatch his production there. So Logan Webb is probably my third favorite option at the ownership. Chris Sale is going to be 4 for me right behind those guys. I just think he has a lot of upside even in that Dodgers matchup, right? He has a ton of strikeout potential, even if he does give up a home run or two, which definitely can happen against probably the best offense in baseball, right? With the Dodgers, best team in baseball, probably one of the best teams in baseball history that we've seen, right? This roster is insane for the Dodgers there. I just think if a guy can give up home runs and that I want to make it up, right, with strikeout upside, and that's what Chris Sale does to offset some of those points that you do lose in terms of fantasy scoring there. So I like Chris Sale. And then Michael King would be the distance guy. Don't love picking on the Indians, but it's just the nature of the slate. I think those 5 are kind of where I'm at. And then below that, let's talk about some of these value options. It gets weak really quickly. Simeon Wood Richardson, I think, is interesting just due to that weather there. 50 degrees, kind of wind blowing in there in Chicago. I'm not worried about what the White Sox just did to Paddock yesterday. Paddock just is always struggled with home runs. He gave up 5 home runs in spring training, so I'm not really worried about that. I think people will tend to shy away a little bit. I think Woods Richardson is a better pitcher, better talent, better overall than what Paddock is. So I'm on the boat with Woods Richardson. He's probably my only guy that I have interest in below 8K, to be honest. And he would be probably my 6th pitcher to round out a pitcher pool of 6 realistically here for me. But anybody else down here that you see in terms of pitchers that you could throw a stab on?
Yeah, the two you mentioned are the two that I'd look at, Mize and Richardson. Those two guys are the ones I'd be staring at. Mize is interesting. He had a really good spring. They were just talking about when I was driving around earlier today here in Metro Detroit, talking about Mize and how they were liking his splitter that he's been throwing and look really good. And, they were expecting, him to have an increase in his strikeouts this year. So we'll see how that works out. I got to see that a few times. But, hey, 7,500. Seattle's, one of the teams we're going to want to attack all season with good righties. Strikeout pitchers that are righties. Seattle's going to be at the top of the list in strikeouts. So, I don't mind the matchup here for Mize, especially with Seattle. They're going to fall into the bucket of one of my favorite teams to attack. So don't mind that one at all. Woods Richardson, as you mentioned, is definitely interesting with those White Sox. I looked up, Wood Richardson's had 80-some pitches in his last spring training start. So I'm not really worried about him being stretched out either. So do like that matchup. Man, we got to be real. This White Sox team sucks. And, that's the thing here with early part of baseball. Teams, people will just shy away. They'll go, to the Yankees or they'll go to where, recency bias, stuff like that. And let's not forget, like, we in our mind still the White Sox are absolutely terrible. So we got to keep, like pitchers going against them or somebody we're going to definitely want to be looking at here throughout the season. So I'm not going to be fooled by their 9 runs in their first 3 innings and then they score shit after that. So, yeah, Woods Richardson for me. I think Mize is really interesting. I'm not really looking to go really anywhere else. I don't think. I mean, some of these other guys, Hendricks, Williams, I mean, they're just kind of boring for me. I mean, they're just kind of inning eaters. They're not going to really get you any kind of Ks that we're hunting on. And that's what I'm saying, with today's strikeout percentages, we had a few guys over that the average mark. So Mize really for me, I think, if I had to choose between Mize and Woods Richardson, I think I would probably go Mize because I think he's probably got a better chance to go longer in that game. I think the Tigers will give him a little longer leash. I think they're going to want Mize to get some confidence going. I mean, he's injury prone, number 1 overall pick. So I do like Mize a little bit here today against Seattle. But once pitcher site, like I'm going to be playing my action on today, I'm not getting cute, man. I mean, maybe I'll go a Chris Sale of one of my 3 or 4 lines I begin to do, but it's Gilbert for me. I'm just, like I said, I'm not going to get Cupid. SP2 on DK, I think that's interesting. I think that's where like a Mize comes into play, especially if you want to get some better bats.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do side with Woods Richardson over Mize just because I want Mize to show me he does have that strikeout ability. I know the talks, right? You being local there and got the local intel from local radio stations and that. I get it. I think he does have upside. I think we're going to see his strikeouts trend in the right direction. It is a great matchup. It's a great pitcher's ballpark out there. Actually, the best probably in the league, right, for pitchers out there in Seattle. I don't mind it at 7,500 as an SP2. I do have Woods Richardson kind of in another tier above him. He did go 81 pitches in his last spring training start. Woods Richardson did, so his leash should be there. This White Sox team last year against right-handed pitching at home struck out nearly 30% with this confirmed lineup. I mean, you have 4 guys in this lineup over 30% strikeout guy, and your leadoff hitter struck out over 40% of the time against right-handed pitching last year. So he's Woods Richardson last year sat about an 18% K rate on the season. That's not that much different than the rest of these guys on the slate. Gyiraszin, we talked about it, right? Only 2 guys over 23% strikeout rate on the slate, and that's Chris Sale and Logan Gilbert. Everybody else there is, you can throw them into the same bucket. Close your eyes and kind of pick out whoever hits your SP2 position right after Gilbert or Sale there. So I like Woods Richardson. I do like Mize as well. And then if you really want to just absolutely punt and pay up for every bat, I think going to the other side of that Twins game, on the other side of Woods Richardson, you could take a stab at $6,500 Smith. I'm not going to do it. I don't think I need it. But in MME, it will give you some different lineup constructions and roster constructions than some of the field will go to. And again, it is probably the best hitting conditions on the slate, or pitching conditions, in Chicago there with wind blown in. Temps are really cold there. We do have some weather concerns there, but I think it should be fine from what I'm seeing there. So gets gross pretty quick. That's the kind of nature of this pitching slate here. It's Gilbert and then everybody else. I rank them Gilbert, Steele, Woods Richardson are probably my top 3 when you factor in salary and what you can do with teams on DraftKings. You play more on FanDuel. It's pretty much Gilbert or move on for me over there, I would assume. And sounds like you're kind of in the same boat there. So I think we spent enough time on pitching here. I'm going to transition over and showcase the Stone premium tool over here at SHIPITNation.com, the best tool in all of baseball. I use this to build every one of my teams. This takes into account everything you need. It's got our hitter rankings over here on the side. It's got our projections, the ownership, what they're all the key metrics that we look at for hitters, Gyiraszin, and it's home road splits, right, for handedness. Obviously, all of these numbers are based on last season because we're only a couple games in this year. But we're going to start with the first game on the slate here. Yankees, right? You mentioned if they're facing anybody else but Corbin Burns, their ownership would probably be through the roof. Now you're going to get this team at probably sub 5%. Every guy on this team outside of maybe Aaron Judge gets around 10% instead of his 30 to 40% that he has been coming in at to start the year here. What's your thoughts here? Yankee Stadium. It's not the greatest hitting weather here, but there is some wind blown out as well in this park. Corbin Burns, like I said, his strikeout rate dropped to right around league average, as you can see there, about 23%. And then the D-backs, guaranteed full 9 innings of at-bats against Will Warren here. I think this game is interesting. I definitely have more interest in the D-backs personally, but sounds like you're going to be on some of these Yankees at virtually no ownership.
I mean, one, I believe in streaks. I believe in, when players are feeling good about themselves. Baseball is such a mental mind game. I mean, how are you not on cloud nine if you're on the Yankees right now? I mean, you got to just feel like, these pitchers are going to come in fearful. It's already going to be in their mind. You got we saw that torpedo bat list. I mean, Goldschmidt, Chisholm. I mean, all these guys are using that bat. So I think even if it doesn't really end up playing out as a factor, I mean, it's kind of a mind, head screw. Like it's going to screw with other people's mind. So, I think it's interesting. Yeah, I see, Don Yeezy there say, full torpedo line. Yeah, just put them all in an optimizer, spin it up and see what happens. But, I mean, you lose a lot of correlation that way, obviously, mixing up all the different players. But you probably end up with Kiki, do you love me on your team? Because he's using them too. But, I think on both sides of this game, I think it is kind of interesting. Obviously, you were talking about the Yankees not going to get too much ownership, but then the other side, you got Arizona against Will Warren. I mean, the guy doesn't have too much work here in the major leagues. I think, lefties or something that I think I'd be looking at. Maybe Corbin Carroll, Josh Naylor. I think those guys, I think you could stack, maybe throw in Ketel Marte. So, man, I think you could play both sides of the game, really. They're not going to be too highly owned. I think that's what we're going to kind of see today as we talk about a lot of these games. There's really not too many overly chalky teams like we see on a lot of slates. So kind of interesting. We do have we got 1-9 I saw, and then we got like maybe 6 other games that are in the 8s. So we got 7 of the 11 games are 8 or higher. So, there's really not an offense that stands out, but I mean, I mean, Arizona scored the most runs in all of MLB last year. So, we can't keep sleeping on on them as well. So I do think the lefties here are in play. And I really think they're better off with Josh Naylor than they are with Christian Walker. So I think that team got a little bit better offensively. So I don't mind them at all. I mean, we like the park. I mean, we know the lefties there, can swing up there. So I don't mind it at all. I think it's definitely interesting. Got over under 8.5. Yeah, now I think about it, I kind of like the over in that game. Now I'm talking about it, but Corbin Burns, he is such a head case too, man. Like I think if they start hitting, he could just lose it. I think, I've seen him be a head case in the past. So, I mean, now you're going to have this Yankee team come in and let's see what happens. I don't know, Nate. Interesting spot though. Definitely interesting.
Yeah, I love this spot for the lefties, and you can see the D-backs kind of see that same thing. Only have 2 righties in there. Suarez, who's probably the hottest hitter in baseball right now, and then Moreno in the middle of that lineup. Everybody else, obviously, got 2 switch hitters in there, but the rest are 7 lefties. And Will Warren's stats against lefties in his minor league metrics that we have, obviously he's young. I think he's only got 22 innings in the majors, right? That we have a sample size, and his metrics against lefties are not good. He's really good against right-handed hitters, but you got, again, one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now, Eugenio Suarez, who doesn't care about the torpedo bat talk, right? I love these D-backs here tonight. They steal bases as well, which is huge, big time metric that is huge for DFS scoring, right? I mean, you get to that 5 points for a stolen base on DraftKings. That's as good as hitting a double, right? So you're looking at, if they get walked, right, you're looking at 7 points, right? They get walked, steal second. That's 7 points out of the gate for your guys. Tons of power. That short porch there in right field for Yankee Stadium. Good weather and some wind blowing out. I love the D-backs lefties here. Add in the righties in stacks. And then on the Yankee side, at this low ownership, I think it's interesting, right? I've seen Corbin Burns too often, and when Corbin Burns is off, he's really off, right? Obviously a longtime Brewer. Hated to see him go, but he has regressed, like I said, over the last the last 2 seasons. And the Yankees, 15 home runs in 3 games so far this season. I think that's a major league record for sure. Obviously, I think they're all in play. Obviously, Judge, great option. Bellinger, Goldschmidt. I probably prefer the lefties more. I like Belly, Jazz, Austin Wells, who's been really good right there. Jason Dominguez, very young prospect there. He was the talk of baseball when he came in. He's got a ton of power there. So I think this game is good. I definitely prefer the D-backs more, but I think the Yankees at this ownership, like you mentioned, anybody else in this spot with all the hype around them and what they just did to my Brewers, I think it was a combination of Yankees are good. The park was good. It was good hitting conditions. And the Brewers pitching staff is just atrocious too. So I think it was a combo of both. But I do think anybody else, they'd be mega chalk on the slate, and that's not going to be the case. So in tournaments, I really like that game a ton. Both sides for sure. D-backs probably my second favorite stack of the night. Next game on the slate.
I think right out the gate we had an interesting game. I think this is a pretty interesting slate. The more we get into it, it's like, man, there's all kinds of ways to go. This is good.
Yeah, I think it's a really good slate. That first game brings us into another really good game here. Tampa playing in I think they're playing in a minor league park right now, right? With the issues that they saw in that hurricane, with their park getting kind of destroyed over the offseason there with the hurricane damage. I think that park's going to be really good for hitting conditions. We haven't quite seen it too much as of late, but the Rays did put up a nice number yesterday, and they are pretty cheap overall to stack up here, and they're facing this Pirates staff and Thomas Harrington, who really I'm not afraid of at all. I think the Rays are pretty interesting here. They are going to be probably one of the more popular teams on the slate, as you can see here. Majority of their lineup are projected for double-digit runs here, but you got some cheap guys. Jake Magnum in here, who I think he's coming off a 30-point game, DraftKings point game. He didn't really get a price increase. I like Cameron Misner a lot here. Hits righties pretty good. Sucks that Aranda's not in this lineup. I wish to see Aranda in there, but he is getting the day off. But guys like Brandon Lau, Caminero, Misner are good. Magnum's cheap right there, hitting fourth. I think this is a pretty good spot on the Rays side. Probably not a spot I'm going to any of these Pirates outside, maybe an O'Neal Cruz, who I think you can play him anytime he's on the slate, right? Power, speed, combination. Shane Baz, nothing to be too scared of. He's got some strikeout stuff, but he does get hit hard. What's your take here, Pirates and the Rays, in that what I think is going to be a hitter-friendly park as we go longer throughout the season? And it's probably the best hitting conditions here on the slate. I'm looking at Ballpark Pal. Good temperatures here, wind blowing out. They got a 20+% boost to home runs from their model, what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw Harrington, I was like, who's this Harrington? Are we talking Joey Harrington, like from, back in the Oregon days, back when, when I was younger watching some football? But no, it's Thomas Harrington, young kid. Man, I think I don't even know. I think he might be making his major league debut up here. I think he came up from Double-A. I kind of was reading up about him a little bit. Looks like he's a below average strikeout pitcher, a lot of fly balls. But man, I mean, if I'm like going to stack up a team, Nades, it's like I want to feel good about this lineup. And then it's just hard to click some of these names, and 4 or 5 of these names. I mean, like especially with our guy Miranda being out, I think, he was kind of a guy that we were looking at here the other day. Yesterday we talked a little bit about him being a $2,500 4-hitter. But, I mean, Diaz, Lowe, as you mentioned, Caminero, Misner. I mean, it's just not, it just looks like it's just not something that I want to click on, right? It's just hard for me. I really want to have more of a powerful team. I like situations like this where I feel like some of the field is going to be drawn to situations like this. It has the highest number over 9. I mean, is the highest number on the board today. So obviously Vegas likes parts of this game, but I think I'm just going to leave it be. I just don't think there's really going to be enough home runs here in this game for me to ship. If it beats me, if the Rays beat me, they beat me with dudes that pretty much 90% of an average baseball fan, we know who the hell they were. So, I mean, if that's the case, fine. I'm going to let hopefully everybody else load up on some Rays. I'm just going to leave it be. But, hey, like I said, Nate, it beats me, but Vegas sure does like it.
Yeah, I think a lot has to do with, again, we're early in the season. This game's down in Tampa, right? Hot and humid, slight winds blowing out. I think that has a lot to do with it, right? April baseball, most of the time you're looking for good hitting conditions because they're scarce, right? And that's the case right here. So I think Vegas is also obviously playing into that. I don't mind the Rays. I do like them more as a mini stack just because I think, number one, their ownership's going to be up there. And number two, I just, to your point, I don't like too many of these guys down low, right? Like Johnny DeLuca, Taylor Walls, right? Curtis Mead, Jake Magnum. I don't love chasing a cheap guy that just popped off yesterday because recency bias is so big in this bubble that we live in, especially early on in the season, right? When people are still kind of juggling multiple sports, right? We don't have a lot of metrics, etc. People like to click those game logs and they see a $2,500 guy against a rookie making his major league debut here for the Pirates in good weather. That's kind of just an auto click, right? I know ownership's not showing it, but I do expect it. I think he's fine. I prefer Misner. I don't mind some of these lefties, but again, more of a mini stack, 2-man, 3-man stacks for me. On the Pirates, O'Neal Cruz is probably the only interest that I really have, but I'm kind of with you there. I like a lot of these late games and then that Yankee game to kind of kick us off here. But let's jump in. Toronto, Berrios on the hill, Trevor Williams, Nationals, Blue Jays. I like some of these Nationals here a little bit, some of these lefties against Berrios. Nothing special here. Toronto has put up a decent amount of runs as of late here. Trevor Williams, nothing crazy, but a chalky Toronto team here on a full slate. I don't love it, to be honest with you. I prefer the National side of this game, but what's your take here, Toronto and Washington?
Toronto is one of these teams I'll keep my eyeballs on, because, adding Jimenez here and then, adding Santander to that lineup has gave them a lot more power, obviously. I mean, their strikeout percentages are all below 20%. So, I mean, they're going to be putting the ball in play quite a bit. So, I mean, this Blue Jay team is definitely going to be interesting. I mean, Jimenez right there at second base. I mean, I think he's got 3 or 4 home runs already. So, definitely going to want to keep our eyes on him. I think the Blue Jays are interesting. The Nationals, obviously we know, just kind of talking the last few days about bullpen. Nationals bullpen stinks. I mean, let's get that out there. It's not good at all. But Trevor Williams is a guy. I mean, he's just a pesky old veteran. He's just a decent, pitcher in real life. He's going to get you some innings. He's just not going to overwhelm you for like in the DFS purposes. He just generally doesn't get beat up all that much either. So I mean, I think this is definitely interesting. I think the Blue Jays are, at the top of the rankings, definitely, as you mentioned, for stacks here today. I think they are going to be pretty popular today. I think you're going to see the top of that lineup being used, but and rightfully so. I mean, if they can get to Williams, I think they're definitely got an opportunity here to get to that bullpen, as we were talking about not being all that great. So I definitely think we're in play there with some Blue Jays. Santander for me would probably be my favorite of the bunch, but yeah, give me some Blue Jays. I think they'll be up at the top of the stack list here today.
Yeah, I'm a little different than you, but I mean, you hit on it a little bit there. Trevor Williams, he's nothing we really want to play for DFS. He had a really good last season, and he's just a guy that doesn't get blown up too much. So the counter argument to that, right, Gyiraszin, is the Nationals bullpen behind him is terrible. So if he is getting beat up a little bit, I mean, it could get ugly pretty quick here. They do have good hitters, right? Vlad, Santander, both really good options. Bichette, power speed combination there. I actually have more interest on the National side here. I think CJ Abrams, James Wood, coming both off a home run yesterday. Keibert Ruiz, I think is a great option at catcher in that kind of mid-tier hitting third. I like these lefties, and the Nationals are projected to have 6 lefties, all hitting 1 through 6. I think the lefties are in play here against Berrios. Don't love them as really a full stack, but mini stacks, I like Abrams, I like Wood, Ruiz. I like 2- and 3-man stacks here quite a bit for the National side. Don't really like the Jays. I'm going to pass on the Jays. I get it. I think you just can't play everyone here. I'm playing 2 teams tonight, 2 main teams. Not gonna have the Blue Jays, but I definitely get the reasonings there. I just don't really want to pick on a pitcher who I think is a solid enough game manager and can just go out there and limit the upside.
Berrios, as we know, he sucks. He got beat up his last start too. So I mean, especially them lefties, as you mentioned. I mean, you get Ruiz, a catcher, pretty cheap, hitting in a 3-hole that you can throw into your stack too. I mean, Woods is obviously very powerful young man there. The dude's a beast. Abrams, I mean, he's going to end up being one of the better shortstops in all of baseball. So I don't mind it at all. I think 1 through 3 is about as far as I go. Maybe a little mini stack there, up there at the top. So yeah, definitely in play there against Berrios, who just didn't look too good there. But I think I put the Nats in my kind of like the sneaky bucket, kind of low owned, cheap kind of stack there that you could throw in. I mean, if we had more, if you want to go with some Dodgers or Yankees, you might have to use a stack like the Nats to round it out, maybe get a little cheap. So yeah, definitely like some Nats, but I think the Blue Jays are definitely interesting. I think they're going to be one of the higher owned stacks probably today. I think they'll be up there within the talk of that. We'll get to some others that I know we like that'll probably be a little bit more chalkier, but I think the Blue Jays are going to get some love. But the Nats for sure, I think at the top, especially them lefties, as you mentioned.
Yeah, don't sleep on Luis Garcia down there too at second base, 3,300. I just like these Nationals lefties. I mean, CJ Abrams, you mentioned 5K. I mean, he has all the power. He has a ton of power, and he swipes bags left and right, which are so crucial in DFS. And I think don't get accounted for enough in this game, even though with the new rules that we saw get introduced and stolen bases numbers go up. I just don't think people account for them enough in projections and in when they're building their DFS teams, because I see a lot of stolen base guys like Pete Crow Armstrong yesterday on the Cubs, power speed combination guy hitting the back half of that lineup, just criminally underowned for a chalkier stack like yesterday's slate, for example. And I like those stolen base guys, and CJ Abrams definitely fits that bill there. Another stolen base guy in this game. Next game, I was here yesterday. It was ugly for a Brewers fan here. Royals looked pretty damn good, and now they face a rookie here making his first start, Chad Patrick, with a taxed bullpen who got absolutely destroyed. Right, I think we've given up over 80 runs in 4 games or 5 games to start the season here. Courtesy of the Yankees, thank you for that. When you drop a 20 spot, that hurts your metrics a little bit there too. Royals, no slouch. They hit really good yesterday. Bobby Witt looked locked in. India looked locked in. Vinny P just missed 2 home runs. He flew up to the track in right field. Hunter Renfroe just missed a couple home runs. I like these Royals a lot. This is probably my top stack for sure on the slate here. And they're going to get ownership. But again, look at the back half of the lineup. MJ Melendez, sub 5%. Renfroe, sub 5%. Miguel Garcia, who hit a bomb yesterday, sub 10%. Kyle Isbell, not going to get any ownership at 2,300 down there. And then obviously you got the big boys up top, right? Bobby Witt, kind of a DFS cheat code. Talk about him all the time. Power speed combo. Swiped 2 bags yesterday. I love this spot. And then I don't mind the Brewers side here. I think Lorenzen's terrible. I think he's a terrible pitcher. Me and Ham went back and forth a lot last year. Ham was kind of slobbering on Lorenzen. I would stack against Lorenzen every time. He got me once or twice, but majority of the time you're going to get the better end of that when you're stacking against Lorenzen here. I know the Brewers have been abysmal to start the year hitting-wise. We'll see. This is a battle of a terrible pitcher and a terrible offense so far to start the season in the Brewers, but these guys have a ton of stolen base upside as well. Don't sleep on them, right? Terang, Churio, Yelich can swipe bags. Frelick can swipe bags. Garrett Mitchell will swipe bags. Joey Ortiz. I mean, this team has a lot of speed. They're young. They do have power. What's your take here in this game? I think one of the better games on the slate, definitely to target here in my head.
Yeah, one of the first bets I made today was the over. The over in this game is. I mean, it seems to me to be pretty simple bet for me. But yeah, I got to agree with you. The Royals to me are definitely going to be one of the top stacks. You just look at the Brewers. Obviously, have had some issues, been giving up all kinds of runs. So I do think the Royals are going to be up there here today as far as probably one of the, you want to call it chalky, but I don't think that, they're going to be, teams are going to be too chalky. But I definitely think the Royals have what it takes to get it done for you today. Witt, Perez, Pasquino, Massey, as you mentioned, Isabel. Biggio is probably somebody I'd probably stay away from. I just don't think he has enough power to get it done for me today. But on the other side of that game too, I think, some of these righties, Churio, Contreras are going to be looking at Rhys Hoskins. I think it's somebody, Lorenzen, kind of, 41% ground ball percentage last year. So you're going to want some guys that kind of hit the ball in the air. Rhys Hoskins, top of that list, 36% fly balls last year. I think it's interesting. But Contreras for me, Chirero. But I think you can use 1 through 6 here for this Brew Crew lineup. I think it's a good opportunity for a game stack. If you wanted to stack up one of these games here on this slate, I think this is the one you could look at. I mean, you could probably look up and down, and the Brewers and Royals are probably both rank up there probably fairly highly, I would assume, in different team stack rankings and different wherever you look, different sites, different optimizers. So yeah, I like them both here today. So definitely interesting, as we said. I think there's a lot of options to have had, but I'd put both of them in the top tier bucket here today for stacks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Chad Patrick, looking at his minor league stuff, fly ball guy throughout the minors. He was solid in his AAA stint, right? But again, he's making his first start against a team that is seeing the baseball good. Yes, right now. I mean, Bobby Witt smashed some balls yesterday right at outfielders. Again, Vinny P just missed a bomb. I mean, this team's hitting the ball well right there. I was in attendance yesterday. Melendez murdered some baseballs. So I like this team a lot. And again, the guys at the back half just aren't going to get a ton of ownership. And that's an easy way to middle that ownership in terms of a stack. And there's enough good spots on this slate, right, with a big slate that I just don't think ownership's going to come in too drastic, right? We ain't got like a Coors Field position or a situation here, right, where a team's going to come in 40% owned is like a stack. That's just not the case. It's going to spread out much like yesterday did. And I'm going to take my chances here against a team that is seeing the baseball good and a pitching staff that is just absolutely taxed right now. I will make one note, though. Gyiraszin, the Brewers' best two relievers have not pitched yet because of the way the games have gone. So that is one thing to watch out for, right? Brewers do have some good reliever arms in there that just have not pitched this season because when they're losing 8-0 in the third inning, right, they're not going to come in and burn those arms up, right? It's a long year. So that is one thing to call out. But again, if those guys come in, usually your Royal stack's not going to get there.
You don't have to defend your squad. You don't have to defend them.
No, I'm just saying.
You can pitch softball better than they've been pitching lately. I mean,
agree,
we know.
I'm just saying for the counter argument, right, to how the Royals could fail is if the game is somewhat close for whatever reason, right, Patrick does come in and hold it, and the good arms do come out, that's going to limit the upside, right? So I just wanted to say, I mean, the Royals are my top stack today for sure. I just want to say that there is some good bullpen arms that just have not thrown this year that could fault that a little bit in terms of upside. And then on the Brewers side, yeah, I mean, the big dogs are in play for me. I mean, it's a good game. I already kind of hit on who I'm looking at in that game. That takes us to this next game, though, which isn't a good game. I liked Woods Richardson a ton as a cheap pitcher on this slate. This is a game that I'm crossing off for bats. I don't think we need to spend much time on it, but maybe you see someone here that you can pull out. But for me, it's a cross-off spot here. Woods Richardson or pass in this one.
Yeah, shitty hitting weather. I mean, if it was a little better hitting weather, maybe we could talk a little bit about some Twins. But, I mean, Ryan Jeffers using a torpedo bet. If you want to go over there to DK and bet on their sports book on their torpedo section, he's probably in there somewhere to hit a home run. But, yeah, we can skip this one here. This game is, I don't really see too much interest. Low game, 7.5 total here. Shitty weather, as we mentioned. No thanks. We'll pass.
Yeah, no thanks. Takes us to the next game here. We're going out to Busch Stadium, St. Louis. Got Liberatore on the hill, Kyle Hendricks on the hill for the Angels. I mean, this dude is getting passed around the league left and right. He's not a dude that I'm scared of by any means. I don't mind some of these Cardinals lefties. I think they're interesting. Not a team where I'm probably going to full stack them, but I think some of these lefties, Lars Nootbaar is looking pretty good to start the year. Alec Burleson, I think, is good. Brendan Donovan just coming off a home run. I think these lefties are pretty intriguing. Nolan Gorman, they're cheap. They're against the bad starting pitcher, in my opinion, guy that I just don't I'm not afraid to pick on here. I think the lefties for the Cardinals make some sense. On the Angels side, I mean, you can always play a Trout, but I'm just, again, I don't like playing bad offenses. I think the Angels are a bad offense, and on an 11-game slate, there's a lot of good teams, and I know you had this rule, just stack good teams in baseball. You're going to win more times than not, right, than trying to make these shitty offenses work. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking here tonight with the Angels. But what's your take here?
Yeah, I got to agree with you, especially when you got a big-ass 11-game slate. Like, you got to figure there's going to be some offense somewhere. I mean, if we're limited to like a 5 or 6 game slate, maybe some of these teams that are going to double you to death and, single and double you to death. I mean, I don't give a shit if a team scores 4 runs. If you got 2 walks, a double, a hit, a walk, a double. I mean, that's not winning you any DFS tournaments. You got to have some bombs. So, yeah, I think the lefties, as you mentioned, are about the only place I'd go. Top of that lineup, Newbar, Burleson, Donovan, all are interesting. Hendricks is just the guy, 45% ground ball pitcher. So, as I mentioned all the time, fly ball percentages of the 3 up at the top, Burleson a little bit higher, close to 27%. But yeah, like all 3 of the lefties up there against him, he's just the guy that doesn't get beat up too much. That's why I wouldn't go a full stack. But maybe even any of the 3 is a one-off, or maybe just a small mini of the Cardinals is probably about the only place I think I feel comfortable going here. As you mentioned, the Angels, you get sucked into playing teams, when they were playing the White Sox, everybody was chasing against the White Sox. And then you get sucked into playing the Angels. Any way you dress a pig, it's still a pig, Nades. So, we got to, it's funny too, in baseball, you play something and, you get to get back at it right the next day, but then you got to kind of think about, I made a pretty bad decision. Why would I want to stack up the Angels? They just suck. When you literally probably could have stacked up the D-backs that nobody was talking about, who scored the most runs in baseball, which, that's just a funny game of DFS we play. But, yeah, as you said, we got to stay away from stacking non-powerful teams. I'm not calling some of these offenses shitty, let's just say. Maybe that's a bad term, but they're just not powerful enough for me to get to the top of some of these tournaments that we're going to want to win. So I'd rather have these 3-run bombs and, than, nickel and diamond it to death. But especially some of these teams that don't steal bags, as you mentioned. But, yeah, give me definitely stay away from the Angels here today. I'm out.
I will say, Nolan, you talk about fly balls, right? You want lefties against Hendricks, and you want fly ball guys, right? You mentioned he's a ground ball guy, doesn't get beat up too much. So I do prefer the Cardinals more as 2-man and 3-man stacks here tonight. I'm not going to 5-man them. Nolan Gorman, 41% fly ball rate last year. And, he's got some power. He's got a ton of power there. Fits a weak second base position as well. We haven't talked about position eligibility too much, but second base is typically a pretty weak position in general, right? And he's 3,400. So I like that quite a bit. Victor Scott, I see the chat talking about him. He's 2,600, a cheap outfielder there. You can wrap around to the top, right? Do like an 8-1-2 stack, something like that, 8-1-3 stack, something like that. He's a fly ball guy. So I think the lefties for the Cardinals are definitely intriguing. Not a full stack for me, but definitely some of those guys for sure make some sense here tonight. And yeah, no Angels for me. Trout, he's Mike Trout. You can always play him anytime, and you're better off to play him early in the year when he's still healthy before he hits the IL and sits out the rest of the year and just collects his fat paycheck there. But let's move on to the next game here. Astros and the Giants. Logan Webb on the hill. Hayden Wendzinski here coming over from the Cubs for the Astros in part of that Kyle Tucker trade. What's your take in bats here? When we did run the kind of dry run on SaberSim, these Giants were getting thrown into the optimizer builds pretty frequently here. The Astros have been abysmal to start the year here. Do they finally break out against a good real-life pitcher? I don't know. It's not a spot that I'm going to pay to find out here. These Astros are pretty expensive, the guys that you want to play. You got Cam Smith down there, tons of power, rookie. He's fine, I think, at 2,500 as a one-off. Jordan is fine, but this is another game where I'm just not really interested in bats here too often, and Giants are going to pick up some ownership, and I'm probably going to be off this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this one here is just kind of mediocre for me. And you can always play Jordan. Jordan in his pretty high fly ball percentage rate. Logan Webb, we talk about 57% ground ball pitcher. So I'm not really interested today in any Astros. You mentioned the other side with the Giants. It's just, we got a so-so park. It's just nothing too enamoring here. I think it's okay. Maybe if you want some one-offs, Chapman, somebody you can do Adames, you could look at, isn't too bad, but Wazinski was 44% ground ball percentage last year. So I don't know. I just not overly enamored with it. Maybe if, you want to throw in one of them one-offs, as I mentioned, you need a cheaper shortstop or a fill-in third baseman. I think you could look at Adames or Chapman, but I'm not interested in any kind of stack.
Yeah,
it's nothing great. We got 11 games, but I could see you wanting to play it if you wanted to, but I just not for me.
Yeah, it's not for me. Hayden is reverse splitsy, right? So Adames, Chapman, Ramos, I think are fine, but not a spot. I mean, they're fine. There's a lot of fine spots in the slate, and I just would rather play fine spots, right, in better ballparks for hitting conditions against more attackable pitchers, in my opinion. But yeah, not a spot where I'm really looking to. I agree there. Takes us to the next game here. I definitely have interest in this one on the Padres side. Logan Allen, I think last year was the worst pitcher in baseball, or one of them, for home run issues. And now he faces a Padres team here who's got a lot of powerful righties, which I want to attack Logan Allen with. Fernando Tatis, Machado, Jackson Merrill can even hit lefties. I mean, he's 5K. He's going to be unowned lefty at 5K. I don't love that price point there, but I think these Padres is more mini stacks. Probably don't get you a 5-man here. I do think they have upside at not a ton of ownership here against a guy that struggles with home run issues here. Padres, Indians, what's your take here? I'm off the Indians against Michael King. I did think he was viable up in that top tier as a pivot off of Gilbert or a SP2 option there, $300 cheaper than Gilbert. But what's your take here? Any hitters in this spot for you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Indian side against King. I'm not really too interested in attacking Mr. King there. But as far as the Padres side goes, I do think it's interesting. But then again, I do caution that I am always leery of that bullpen that sits behind that starter there for the Indians. I think the Indians have the best bullpen, as I've mentioned a little bit yesterday. So that is kind of scary, but I mean, what are we going to get a Logan Allen? Maybe 1 at bat, 2 at bats, best. I know we're not getting 3, but that even might be enough damage there to get it done. Tatis, like you mentioned, the right side, Machado, Bogarts, Gurriel. I think those guys are all interesting plays here today. It just worries me a little bit about that bullpen there sitting behind them. Especially there in San Diego too, that night you get that marine layer coming in there. You don't, it's just kind of tougher park to hit a home run in. So really not somewhere that, I'm looking even at early part of the season when it's cold. So, there just really isn't too much there that, makes it a glaring, obvious spot for the Padres. I do think it's interesting. I think they're in the mention for a top stack, especially against Allen. But I lay a little caution there to that bullpen that they got behind him. But yeah, righties for me on the Padres definitely are interesting. If I got 3 teams, I probably may have a Padres stack, even though I may be tongue in cheek a little bit, because if it starts getting a little later in the game and I don't get my production at the beginning of the game, I'm going to be very concerned. So, but I mean, that's the thing with baseball. I do love sometimes in the Discord, and I see, guys be like, oh man, my stack sucks. And it's like the 5th inning. It's like, just kind of calm down a minute, man. Sometimes that 7th and 8th inning, you could roll it up 4, 5, 6 runs and get you what you need sometimes. So, yeah, baseball, finicky sport, definitely won a lot of variance, but you got to be patient sometimes. But yeah, I think this one here it's just rough, man. I think it's just scary to me, especially that we got 11 games. If this is like a 5-game slate, man, I think the Padres for me would be probably one of my lock top stacks here today. But with 11 games, I think we're going to see some offense, as we mentioned. I do like that Brew Crew game a little bit more for runs. So I think I'll skip out on this one. But overall, man, I think the Padres righties are looking juicy.
Yeah, I don't mind this Lockridge dude down here. I mean, he's a fly ball guy. If Maldonado's in that lineup too, I know we have Diaz projected, but if Maldonado does, he's a massive fly ball guy. You could get a little sneaky and do a wraparound. Again, but not a spot where I'm 5-man stacking these guys. Tatis, Machado, far and away the best 2 bats from this team, in my opinion. And then throwing a stab at like a Lockridge or a Maldonado if he's in there. But yeah, not a spot I'm really interested in. And then no Guardians for our guy in the chat who's a little tilted over us calling them the Indians. Sorry, we're not soft and not going to abide by society's rules out there. In air quotes, right? Rules, I should say. So we'll call them the Indians, Guardians, whatever you want to call them. They're always the Indians to me. Gyiraszin is the same there. We already.
Why do I got a white dude? Why you got to pull out? I'm a white dude. We all know I'm white. I'm about as white as you get.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's the race has nothing to do with it, but whatever.
Right. I mean, they're the Indians. I mean,
it was literally their name. It was literally their name for years. Nonetheless, we'll move on here and head to the chalk SP of the slate. Right, Logan Gilbert and Casey Mize in the worst ballpark in the slate for hitting. this is a spot that outside of maybe deep MME, right, is just pure leverage and just hope and pray to play bats in this one. Not a spot I'm playing any bats in my main teams. I'm going really for that qualifier tonight for the live final in that 920 there. I'm not going to have any of these hitters in my lineups, but maybe in MME, you could take a case. I just, again, don't think it's a spot to do so. 11 games, there's enough teams to play. These are two teams I'm not playing any hitters from, but any takes here, the Tigers truther on the show here himself, right, with the Tigers pullover on there.
Yeah, I mean, Casey Mize isn't the greatest of pitchers. I mean, he has got beat up. I mean, I just don't like the park. I don't like the over-under sitting at 7. I mean, Kyle Raleigh is interesting. If you need a catcher, I think you could use him. I think he grades out here pretty good today. So don't mind him. But other than that, yeah, no, not interested at all. I think, like I said, Gilbert, he's going to be pretty chalky. I don't even like any of these Tigers to as really any kind of leverage either against going to be a fairly chalky Gilbert. I mean, anywhere, if I was going anywhere, maybe Riley Green or Carpenter if you wanted to. But, man, no thank you. I'll just pass on that. Like you said, total is 7. No need. We got plenty of games, plenty of other teams that we could look at here today. I think we got one we're going to be probably liking here as we get to these couple 10 o'clock games. But, yeah, I'll just pass here on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I think Gilbert's a smart enough pitcher to not let Gary Carpenter or Riley Green beat him, right? And even Riley Green, he has some strikeout concerns against right-handed pitching to come with his power, right? A lot of power hitters are that way, right? Kind of boom bust in terms of strikeouts and power, kind of go hand in hand. And then, yeah, on the Mariners, Cal Raleigh, Luke Raley, I think are both fine. Cal Raleigh, always a good option at the catcher position. He always has multiple home run upside, which you always love to see at a 1Z position. Like the catcher, most people just throw their catchers in at stacks. I'm typically team just punt catcher, unless you're paying all the way up for like a Salvi Perez or something like that. Because, again, it is, I mean, like Carson Kelly yesterday, he was a difference maker for me and kind of why I shipped all the money with a bunch of other people is people just don't like clicking gross guys like that because it's not flashy. And if I'm going to do it, I'd rather just include them in the stack and just hope to get lucky. And that's what happened yesterday. It wasn't like I started my lineups throwing Carson Kelly in my team. And he wasn't even actually projected to start, right? It was a Maya there. So it was just kind of a nature of last piece and last fit there. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But next game on the slate, it was the talking point, and it was the spot you needed yesterday, right? This new stadium out there in Oakland that they're playing in, and you got Severino on the hill, and when it goes bad for Sevy, it goes really bad, and what you want to attack him with is lefties. I think Kyle Tucker's probably the top bat on the slate for me. Ian Happ, Michael Busch coming off a bomb last night. I think this is a great spot. Interested to see how the ownership shakes out for the Cubs, but early looks, it doesn't look like people are going to go back to them here. And that Athletics bullpen is one of the worst bullpens in baseball that we talked about all last season, Gyiraszin. We picked on this team constantly. Even if the starter went 4 or 5, they do have some decent starters out there in Oakland. Once you got to that bullpen, you were kind of swimming in terms of licking your chops for at-bats. I like the Cubs a lot here tonight. I'd expect them to pick up more ownership, just, again, recency bias, but it doesn't look that way, and that makes me like them a little bit more. I'm definitely starting with the lefties first. Kyle Tucker, probably my favorite bat on the slate, all things considered. What's your take here, Oakland and the Cubbies?
Yeah, I think either mine or your Wi-Fi is a little choppy, but we're getting there. We're getting to the end here. We don't want to get kicked off, and I know we're like taking too much time here, but we'll be all right. A lot of good stuff here we've been talking about. Yeah, but I really like the Cubs, as you mentioned, Tucker. And, hey, we all like us a Busch. So, you got to have Mr. Kyle Busch in your lineups there sitting in that 4-hole. But, yeah, I think the top of that lineup's interesting. As you mentioned, PCA, too, is interesting with some stolen base upside. Swanson, I think Swanson's using one of them torpedo bats, if I'm not mistaken, from what I saw him on the list. I think Horner does, too. As I saw. So that's just interesting there. But yeah, just, I think the Cubbies coming off, all the big runs. I think the recency bias could be there a little bit here with the Cubs. I don't have them as ranked high as like some Orioles. I like the Padres a little better than the Cubs here today. But I do think the Cubs are in play. We got us a later game, as you mentioned. this park here that I was kind of looking, Nades. I wanted to look at the park compared to the other teams, and I just can't get a good feel really for this park out there in Sacramento because, man, they're playing out there in that West Coast, and they got a lot of high altitude minor league ballparks. So you see the average runs are like 12 and 13 and shit in these parks, and you're just like, what? But so I think theirs was like 9 point something, 9.3, I think it was, something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm still, the jury's out. But as you mentioned, I mean, my brain today didn't really click that Tampa Bay is now playing in basically Yankee Stadium in warmer weather today. So it's like, man, you got to think about them lefties, So like here we are at the beginning, the season. So yeah, these two parks here are definitely something that, with these torpedo bats, you kind of got to get your eye on. I mean, you want to be ahead of it. If it is a thing, you obviously want to be ahead of it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think this one's interesting. We'll see how this park shakes out. But I mean, it can't be any worse with them big foul ball, grounds that we saw out there in Oakland, out there at Coliseum, eating up all those balls. But man, I think the Cubs are interesting. You get that ninth inning at bat. I don't think the A's bullpen's all that good. But yeah, give me some Cubbies. I put them outside my my top tier bucket, maybe a little higher, maybe in the bottom tier of the high bucket.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Hopefully everything's good. I'm hardwired in, so not really sure what happened there in terms of my connection or mic. Hopefully you guys got me now. But again, lefties for me are the preferences. Carl Armstrong, I'll continue to say it. He's just always go under owned. He's got stolen base upside, power upside. Michael Busch, Kyle Tucker, Ian Happ. I want the lefties and then fit whatever righties that you want. Dansby Swanson's swinging a good stick right now. Suzuki always has the home run upside there. Matt Shaw has power, the rookie there, and Amaya if you need a punt catcher there to include in your stack. And then no Oakland for me. Justin Steele is probably my favorite secondary pitcher on the slate behind Logan Gilbert. So not really going to pick off any of these athletics there.
I put a couple tidbits from our boy Squid there in the chat saying he's from the area out there. Said he worked at the park for 6 years. It's going to be crazy all year, home run season. So I mean, you heard it here from the man himself who's been out there. So I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting, like, hey, like if we find out in June, oh man, it looks like this park is going to be one of the yielding, a lot more home runs than we anticipated. Like, let's get on that. And I mean, I think it's definitely something we're going to have to keep our eye on. Not necessarily saying I'm going there tonight, but definitely, hey, it proved last night. 20-some runs last night. So definitely something we're going to have to keep our eyes on, but definitely interesting. But I don't have them up at the top here today.
Yeah, I don't have them up at the top, but they're definitely probably 5th or 6th on my list. I mean, they're up there. So definitely don't sleep on them. And again, there's 22 teams on the slate. So 5th or 6th is not bad compared to the number of teams that have potential on the slate. Takes us to the last game, and this is one that I don't have much interest in bats. I mean, Dodgers, you can play them anytime, no matter who they're facing. Do I really want to play them against one of the best pitchers that are going today in Chris Sale? Boom bust potential, yeah, but again, you're paying to find out. I mean, 4,200, 4,800, 5K, 5,500, 6,500. The top five hitters, right, for this Dodgers team, you can play anytime they're on the slate. Even the guys at the back half, Kiki, do you love me, right, with the torpedo bat, but it's just not a spot where I really want to go to. Even being the Dodgers here in Dodger Stadium, and then Braves, same thing. Dustin May's nothing good, but the Dodgers bullpen is good. And these guys, I mean, they'll turn this into a bullpen game in general, right? Usually these pitchers out there in LA just don't have a long leash anyways. And then you're fighting bullpen arm matchups, right? Which is just never fun to attack, right? I never like attacking bullpen games in terms of DFS. So game that I'm not interested in for much. I mean, you could maybe a low-owned Braves, but they just haven't looked good to start the year either. So what's your take here out in LA to round out the slate?
Yeah, I mean, May would be a guy that, maybe you could attack a little bit there. I mean, not really too much of a strikeout pitcher, but yeah, I'm not really interested in any Braves. You got to over under 7.5. I'm just not looking to attack the game here. But on the other side, if you wanted, to attack Sale, I mean, you could look at somebody like Teoscar if you wanted to go there. I'm not interested in attacking them. That is for sure. And I was just looking, I thought somebody said mentioned in the chat, that the Dodgers weren't, there are a couple Dodgers that I believe have the bats. Kiki's one of them, and there was one other one. I forgot who it was.
Max Muncy.
But,
yeah.
It was Muncy, it was Muncy. So, but I mean, I think I'm just going to pass that late game. Sale. If you're sitting there up top, you have to look and see if you can have to fade any Sale teams if he starts doing pretty well. But I'm just going to let this Dodger game go right on by here tonight. I mean, what a slate here we have, Nades. I mean, we got Yankees, we got Dodgers, we got two of the better hitting teams, and they're not even really overly chalky on 11-game slate. I mean, you're talking torpedo bats. I mean, it's just kind of an interesting overall slate. I think it's going to be a fun one. That is for sure. I'm looking forward to getting in there, building some teams. I got to get in there and get to working on that slate plan for us over there. But man, I think we got a really good fun slate here tonight, and I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I agree. That's all 11 games. We talked pitching. At the top of the show, we went in depth game by game. Talked to a couple trolls in the chat. That's always fun. But Gyiraszin, I know we haven't done too many shows together. It's usually a ham and meat thing on Mondays and Fridays, but we always round it out with our home run calls. And do you have a home run call or two for the people to round out the show here before I give mine and get us out of here?
Yeah, I'll give you two dudes I think that are going to hit a home run. I'm going to go the first one I'm going to go with is CJ Abrams. I think is going to hit us a bomb here today. And then the other guy I'm going to go with Manny Machado to hit a home run today.
All right, Manny Machado, CJ Abrams. I like those calls. I'm going to the Cubbies. I'm going to the guy who hit one late when that game was already over. That was definitely very profitable for me. I love to see that. He didn't get pinch hit for late. I'm going Kyle Tucker in the 2-hole projected here tonight against Sevy. A lefty, which I want to attack Sevy with, right? A lefty, get the ball in the air in that Cracker Jack Park out there. So I like Kyle Tucker. And then I will give a sneakier one here in that Tampa ballpark, which, again, you mentioned it's hot and humid out there in Tampa. They're playing in that minor league park, which is small. I think it's going to be at Hitter's Park all season. I'm going to, not the guy who I expect more people to go to in Jake Magnum. I'm going to Cameron Misner, a little punt, 2,600 value guy there is going to put one deep over the wall there in Tampa for everybody. Again, appreciate everyone tuning in. ShipItNation.com. Join now. We do have the promo code right now, MLB50. It's going to go away soon. We got Masters coming up next week. We got the Valspar, right, going on this week. The Valero, excuse me. I always mix that up. I know Tambo and Luke just did the show there right here on this channel for the Valero Texas Open this week. Again, Masters next week. We got NHL rounding out, coming into the playoffs. NBA rounding out, coming into the playoffs here. All things, all sports, get in right now. MLB50 is the code. SaberSim package, $129 a month. Last chance to get that promo code and that value for all of our content, all of SaberSim, our partner over here, which we showed off the top. No better time than now to join. That's going to do it, though. Appreciate everyone watching. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe on the way out. For my guy, Gyiraszin, I'm Nades. We'll catch you guys next time. Let's ship it.